There are a few things that I've really been wanting to get done and do before it freezes outside and it's too late. One of those is I want to make a lavender wreath. I've had these lavender plants growing all summer long. I've been enjoying them in the garden and letting them go because they are so beautiful and they smell so good. But I know we're going to get our first frost tomorrow morning. So I am making a fall wreath. I am collecting as many blooms as I can. I've got this wreath base, which is about a foot, maybe an 18-inch wreath base. It's just from Walmart. It's like $3. I'm using the clear plastic hairbands that are like for little kids' ponytails. I'm using those to gather my lavender stems into bunches, and then I am going to make enough bunches to cover this wreath and use some floral wire to wire it on. It's actually really easy to make a lavender wreath if you haven't made one before, and this is how you do it. It's the easiest way to do it is to make a whole bunch of lavender bunches. These are about 1 or 2 inch lavender bunches. Then you secure each bunch onto your wire wreath with floral wire by wrapping it around and around, and you just keep adding a bunch as you go around your wreath. And I'll show you how I do that here. This is such a fun project to do. My kids love helping, but they also love just watching. And honestly, so many little lavender flowers have been falling all over my kitchen table and my floor that my son decided afterwards that he was going to make a lavender bowl, and he gathered up every little flower, and we have that sitting on the counter now, and it's just making the kitchen smell so good. I actually hung this floral wreath on the back door, and so the house smells incredibly good right now. So I'm just taking a wreath, I add it on, work my way around the wreath, and then use this floral wire and wrap it around 2 or 3 times around each bunch, and then just move around the wreath, adding a new bunch of flowers every 3 or 4 inches until I make my way all the way around the wreath. So it's not complicated at all. It's super simple, but it helps to be able to see it on video so that you'll know how to do it. This lavender wreath was made, I really only cut the flowers from about 4 of my lavender bushes, and these lavender bushes are only 1 year old. So if you are thinking about planting lavender in your garden next year, I highly recommend it. I will be planting at least double the lavender next year in my garden. I need to find a really good source for buying them. So if you know a good place to buy lavender starts or plants already started, let me know in the comments below, because in my area, the only place that I've been able to find them is at the local farm and garden shop, D&B, and they're about $5 each, and I'd really like to be able to find them for about half that price. I know you can buy them in little tiny plugs. If you are a nursery, they buy them, and each, it's like 1 foot by 1 foot sheet that they get that has these little tiny 1/2 inch plugs in it. I don't know what they pay for those, but it would be nice to be able to buy them that way, and I'm not sure if you have to have like a commercial license. But I really want to plant a lot of lavender. I love the way it smells. We have a dairy down the road about a half a mile away, and we usually can't smell it. But if the wind changes direction, we can smell it, and the lavender would be really nice to have a lot of. Perfect. It smells so good. Pretty.
Alright, let's make a big lavender cup.
Okay. I love the way that this looks on the back door. This would really be pretty anywhere in the house, but anywhere that you want it to smell good, because it is a pretty strong smell. I'm sure the smell will decrease after time, but right now it really smells really strongly and really good. My son is collecting all these little lavender flowers. We are just going to keep them. I don't know if we'll end up using them for tea But they are organic lavender flowers and they smell delicious. Okay, moving on now. We are making granola. So this is gonna have some goji berries in it, a little bit of cinnamon, maple, and honey. And we're doing the organic sprouted oats from Costco and using avocado oil. And we're just gonna mix this all up. I will leave this recipe on the blog at farmhouseharvest.net, and I will link that below. But I'm adding, my daughter is actually adding, she's got some honey and some maple syrup. We're putting that into a little saucepan here, and we're gonna simmer it over the stove and just let that warm up together. And we'll add that in with all of our other ingredients, which is the oats, about a teaspoon of salt, the oil, which helps it to crunch, and we're doing cinnamon for seasoning, some vanilla extract, and give that a good stir. We're also adding a bit of sunflower seeds before we roast this in the oven. And we will add the goji berries after it is cooked. And this will go into, I believe it's at 400 degrees in the oven, and it will roast for about 30 minutes until it's golden brown. Then you take it out of the oven, and we'll be mixing in the goji berries and pressing it and letting it cool completely before we break it up and put it into a plastic bag. This homemade granola is wonderful. It's so much cheaper than buying granola at the store. This batch of granola probably cost us a couple of dollars. If we were to buy the same amount of granola from Walmart, we would spend at least $15. So we're gonna get this into the oven, and then while we're working on that, I am going to pull a fall wreath out of my garage. I make these feathery grass wreaths every fall. I've got this really pretty Carl Forster feathery grass growing in my landscaping around my house, and I really love it. You've got to trim it off anyways before next year, so I like to cut it off in the fall and then use it in a wreath for the front door. So I do the same thing as I do with a lavender wreath. I just gather them in little 1-inch bunches with my clear little hair rubber bands, and then I work them into a wire wreath. Now I already had a Carl Forster feathery grass wreath from last year, so I'm just adding to this and making it a lot thicker, and then I will hang it on the front door. I am really making a mess because the old Carl Forster feathery grass is a lot drier, and so it's breaking off. A lot of it is like getting all over my table and everything, but it's really beautiful, and I love the way it looks on the front door for the fall season. Just when you live out in the country, I love bringing those outdoors in or decorating with them, and I just think that they're so beautiful. I do have instructions for making this Carl Forster feathery grass. You could use any feather grass to make this. It doesn't have to be the Carl Forster. But I do have instructions for making this wreath on the blog at farmhouseharvest.net, and I will link that post in the description below this video. So just cleaning up here. I do let my kids help me. They like to do everything that I do, and so if they want to clean up, I let them clean up until they're done, and then usually they last a few minutes, and then they decide that they're done, so I'll take over at that point. But yeah, there's a lot of little feathery grasses all over this area now, so I'm going to get that cleaned up really quick and put back together before we move on. Once I get started vacuuming, I didn't put it all in video, but I ended up vacuuming the whole kitchen. This vacuum is a Shark. I just got it at Walmart, but it does carpet or wood floors, and so I ended up vacuuming the whole kitchen and living room at this point. Moving on, the next thing we're going to make is a delicious chocolate coconut macaroons. These are chewy coconut macaroons. They've got chocolate chips inside them, and then we're dipping the bottoms in some dark chocolate. So the first thing that you do is you separate 5 egg yolks. They don't have to be large eggs. I'm just using the fresh eggs that we have from our chickens. So some of the ones are small, which is why I'm doing 5. And then we are whipping those with a teaspoon of salt till you get a really stiff peak. And then into that, we're going to fold our coconut. So this is 2 large bags of the regular sweetened coconut. And then I'm adding a 1.5 cups of the Ghirardelli semi-sweet mini chocolate chips and a 1.5 cups of sweetened condensed milk to that. And then we're going to very carefully and gently fold this together. It's a little bit messy because our bowl is not as big as it should have been for this project. But we're going to fold this together and then try not to deflate the whipped egg whites because that just makes these a little bit airier. And then we will scoop this. I'm using a cookie scoop. It's about a 2-inch cookie scoop. And scooping these onto parchment lined or a silicone mat lined cookie sheet. And then we will bake these in the oven at 300 degrees for about 30 minutes until they're golden brown. We're just taking out this granola out of the oven, adding our goji berries, and then we will use a couple of big forks to blend the goji berries into the granola while it's hot. And these goji berries are really good. There's no sugar added to them. They're just dehydrated and organic, and they have them at Walmart. They do grow in our area, and I'm planning on planting those in the spring. But we're using a piece of parchment paper and then just pressing this hot granola flat into this cookie sheet so that it can dry in nice big clumps, because I like granola to be clumpy. Then we'll let it cool all the way before we break it into clumps. And back to the coconut macaroons. You kind of have to press them into the cookie scoop and make sure that they'll hold their shape when you put them on the cookie sheet. But this batch actually, I think on the blog I put that it makes 24, but it actually makes more like 36 coconut macaroons. These are one of my family's favorite cookies, especially my husband. He is the biggest fan of coconut macaroons. If you are looking for good Christmas cookies to try this year, this recipe, I highly recommend it. It's super easy to make. Only like 6 ingredients. You don't have to include the chocolate chips. Of course, they're perfectly delicious without the chocolate chips and without the chocolate dipping at the end. All on their own. If you are a coconut fan, you are going to love these. Make sure that your oven is preheated to 300 degrees and then get those in there and let them bake for about 30 minutes until they're golden brown. And then you let them cool completely before you dip them in chocolate. And to make the chocolate, we're just using 1 cup of Ghirardelli semi-sweet chocolate chips, about a tablespoon of coconut oil as my husband grabs one of these cookies. These are his favorite, and he is out hunting, so he took one before they cooled off. But 1 cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips, about a tablespoon of coconut oil. You could also use butter or avocado oil if you don't have coconut oil. And that just helps get these chocolate chips melting over a double boiler. So we put about 1 inch of water into a little saucepan and a glass bowl on top of that. So the steam melts the chocolate chips. This just helps them to not get overcooked as you're melting them. If you overcook them, they get hard and then you can't really use them for dipping very well. And then you just, after your cookies have cooled, you just very carefully dip the bottoms into your chocolate. Let the extras drip off back into the bowl and put them back on your parchment paper or your silicone mat. And then you put them in the refrigerator and let the chocolate stiffen back up or harden back up before you serve them. But these are delicious. They are fun to make with kids. Kids love making them, and they would be a great Christmas cookie to put on your Christmas cookie list this year. My husband has been out hunting a lot lately. It is hunting season here. First it was archery season, and now it's rifle season, and he likes to take new hunters out and show them how to elk hunt. And so we are out we are making what we want to for dinner tonight, and that is going to be banana pancakes. I do this a lot during hunting season. I will do just something super simple for dinner instead. If my husband's not home, I'm just really not super motivated to make a really big dinner. But my daughter really wanted to make banana pancakes tonight, and so that was great with me. It is just flour. We've got some baking powder, a little bit of salt, vanilla extract, and there's actually no sugar in these, but there are a couple of bananas. And instead of just putting an egg in, we are going to whip these egg whites and make them nice and fluffy like a hot cake. The bananas aren't ripe, so instead of just mashing them while they're still yellow, we're going to put them, roast them in the oven about 400 degrees until they turn black. And this just really ripens them up, making them nice and soft and sweet. And while we're waiting for those, we're whipping these egg whites up and then fold that into the batter. And it just, at the end, you'll fold that into the batter, and it just makes your batter nice and fluffy. This is a really great method for ripening bananas if you want to use them for baking. And you can see they're nice and black, and then you just slit them open and scoop the insides out, and they're super soft and a lot sweeter. And it's just a great way to be able to use bananas for baking, whether you're making banana bread or banana pancakes, if you don't have overripe bananas. Another thing I have really been wanting to get to this fall before it freezes is my hydrangeas. Hydrangeas, if you don't know, the blooms last a really long time, looking fresh and beautiful inside after they've been cut. So they're wonderful cut flowers. And it's going to freeze tonight, or by tomorrow morning. These will not probably make it. So I am just grabbing some of the big blooms off my hydrangeas. I got this little firewood holder at a little antique thrift store here in Fruitland, and so I'm super excited to use it for the reason I bought it. I bought it to put flowers in the summertime on the fireplace mantle, or it's not really a mantle, it's a hearth. And also then in the winter we will use it to put some wood in for the fireplace. But I really love these hydrangeas. These are actually the green hydrangeas, but they turn pink. I think it's because I planted them next to a pink hydrangea, so I think that they influence each other in the color. I'm not quite sure, but they start out green and then they turn pink. They're super beautiful. They're the limelight hydrangeas. And I am going to put these beauties on the fireplace hearth and enjoy them for a little bit longer inside the house this fall. Bringing in natural elements from the outside is one of the best ways to decorate your home, especially in the fall when it's harvest season. You can enjoy so much and so much beauty inside your home. So make sure to gather all the beauty outside before it freezes at your home. Thanks so much for watching my video. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do, and we'll see you next time.